For more than 3 decades, Johnny Carson welcomed the biggest stars in America onto The Tonight Show, creating an atmosphere that felt relaxed, friendly, and safe. Viewers believed they were watching genuine conversations between old friends. Off camera, however, Carson was far more observant and guarded than his easy smile suggested. According to longtime producers and staff, Carson quietly kept a mental list of guests he believed were deeply troubling individuals. These weren't simply difficult personalities or nervous performers. In Carson's view, some celebrities revealed cruelty, manipulation, or abusive behavior when they thought no one important was watching. He judged people not by their fame, but by how they treated assistants, crew members, and those with less power. Over time, Carson reportedly became more open with close friends about these experiences. His private stories paint a stark contrast to the glamorous public image of Hollywood's golden age and suggest that fame often protected behavior that would never be tolerated today. Joan Crawford stands at the top of Carson's most unsettling memories. On screen, she appeared composed, elegant, and gracious, an icon of classic Hollywood sophistication. Behind the scenes, however, staff members recalled a far colder presence. Crawford reportedly arrived with rigid demands about lighting, seating, and temperature, insisting on absolute control over her environment. According to multiple witnesses, her behavior toward junior staff was harsh and humiliating. One young production assistant allegedly endured a verbal attack so severe it left her in tears and required intervention. What disturbed Carson most was Crawford's ability to instantly switch personas. When cameras were on, she smiled and charmed effortlessly. During breaks, she became silent and distant, refusing interaction. Carson later described the experience as interviewing someone emotionally hollow. Years later, when allegations about Crawford's private life emerged publicly, those close to Carson said he was unsurprised, believing he had already seen her true nature during that brief encounter. Frank Sinatra presented a different kind of discomfort for Johnny Carson. Publicly, Sinatra was smooth, charming, and charismatic. Privately, Carson reportedly viewed him as intimidating and dismissive toward others. Staff members described an atmosphere of tension whenever Sinatra appeared, fueled by his large entourage and unpredictable behavior. According to several accounts, Sinatra reacted aggressively when given routine production cues, once grabbing a staff member's tie in anger. Carson was particularly disturbed by the singer's treatment of crew members and by comments made about staff during commercial breaks. While Carson respected Sinatra's talent, he reportedly felt the star used his power to belittle others. On one occasion, Carson openly defended his staff, a rare break from his usual neutrality. Afterwards, Sinatra's appearances were quietly limited. Carson allegedly stated that no amount of ratings justified allowing intimidation or disrespect on his set, signaling how seriously he took the responsibility of protecting his crew. Orson Welles challenged Carson in a more intellectual but equally frustrating way. Welles was undeniably brilliant, a legendary filmmaker and storyteller. Yet, according to Tonight Show staff, he behaved as if the rules of television did not apply to him. He routinely rejected prepared questions, ignored time limits, and dominated segments far beyond their scheduled length. This caused logistical chaos, forcing other guests to be cut entirely. Welles also reportedly dismissed production assistants, speaking about them rather than to them. What bothered Carson most was Welles's tendency to treat the show as his personal stage, even attempting to direct camera angles during live tapings. Carson respected genius but believed professionalism mattered more. After one especially difficult appearance, Carson allegedly remarked that talent did not excuse arrogance. While Welles continued to be praised publicly, Carson privately saw him as an example of how unchecked ego can undermine even the greatest artistic achievements. Bette Davis brought sharp wit and undeniable talent, but also a reputation for verbal aggression. On air, she appeared engaging and confident, delighting audiences with her stories. Off camera, staff members described an environment of tension whenever she was booked. Davis reportedly interrupted other guests, dismissed crew members, and made cutting remarks during rehearsals. Several accounts claim she used language that shocked even by the standards of her era. On one occasion, Carson reportedly intervened directly when Davis berated a staff member, calmly but firmly insisting on respect. While Davis complied, the incident left a lasting impression. Carson admired her work, but believed her behavior created unnecessary hostility. Carson admired her work, but believed her behavior created unnecessary hostility. After her final appearance, he allegedly commented that enduring constant verbal attacks was not worth even legendary talent. For Carson, Davis represented the painful contrast between artistic brilliance and personal cruelty, a combination he found increasingly difficult to tolerate. Mickey Rooney's appearances troubled Carson for different reasons. Once a beloved child star, Rooney later became known among staff for inappropriate behavior and erratic conduct. According to multiple accounts, female assistants felt uncomfortable around him due to unwanted physical contact and suggestive remarks. Several reportedly requested reassignment when Rooney was scheduled. Additionally, staff members recalled instances where Rooney appeared intoxicated during tapings, making interviews difficult to manage. Carson was particularly disturbed when Rooney made inappropriate comments about young women on air, forcing him to redirect conversations abruptly. After one such incident, Carson personally apologized to a guest affected by Rooney's remarks. Though Rooney's behavior may have reflected outdated attitudes from an earlier era, Carson believed professional boundaries were non-negotiable. As a result, Rooney's appearances became less frequent and more tightly controlled, reflecting Carson's growing unwillingness to excuse behavior that made others feel unsafe or disrespected. Zsa Zsa Gabor was a frequent guest whose flamboyant personality delighted audiences but exhausted the production team. Behind the scenes, Gabor reportedly made extensive demands regarding temperature, lighting, cosmetics, and scheduling. Staff described her requirements as excessive and disruptive, often delaying tapings and affecting other guests. On at least one occasion, Carson himself intervened to keep the show on schedule. While Gabor's behavior was not described as cruel, it was widely viewed as inconsiderate. Carson reportedly joked that interviewing her felt more difficult than managing a production crisis. Yet because her appearances consistently delivered entertainment value, she was never fully banned. Gabor represents the category of guest Carson tolerated rather than respected, someone whose on-screen charm compensated for off-screen chaos. Still, her repeated demands tested Carson's patience and reinforced his belief that fame often encouraged entitlement at the expense of basic courtesy. Shelley Winters brought volatility rather than vanity. Known for her passion and the strong opinions, Winters frequently veered off topic, turning light interviews into intense political or personal monologues. According to staff, her unpredictability made every appearance risky. Set managers reportedly removed objects that could be thrown, based on her reputation for physical outbursts on other shows. Despite this, Carson seemed to respect her sincerity. While clearly uncomfortable during her more heated moments, he acknowledged that Winters spoke from genuine conviction rather than ego. He reportedly distinguished her from other difficult guests by noting that she meant what she said, even if it disrupted the show's tone. Nevertheless, her appearances became less frequent over time, as Carson preferred guests who complemented the show's format. Winters illustrates the fine line Carson drew between authenticity and disruption, even when the intentions behind the behavior were sincere. Jane Russell's absence from the show later in Carson's career reportedly stemmed from personal and ethical disagreements. While Carson tolerated differing political views, staff members claimed Russell crossed lines by making disparaging remarks about colleagues, particularly LGBTQ+ staff. Several accounts allege she refused services from certain crew members and made derogatory comments during off-camera moments. Carson, known for quietly protecting his staff, reportedly took these incidents seriously. One alleged refusal to appear alongside another actor due to personal prejudice became a turning point. After a particularly uncomfortable appearance, Russell was no longer invited back. This decision was notable because Carson rarely banned guests outright. For him, discrimination was unacceptable, regardless of star power. Russell's case highlighted Carson's core principle. Professional conduct mattered more than legacy. If someone made his staff feel unsafe or unwelcome, their celebrity status offered no protection. Jerry Lewis earned perhaps Carson's harshest private judgment. Publicly celebrated for his charity work and comedic innovation, Lewis was reportedly demeaning and hostile behind the scenes. Multiple staff members recalled verbal abuse, public humiliations, and power plays, including physical boundary violations toward Carson himself. Lewis allegedly interrupted interviews, dismissed crew members, and erupted over minor disruptions.